Okay, so thank you for everybody who's joined so far. My name is Mark Gorringe. I'm Solutions Architect here at Ultima. Welcome you to this session, which is following on from our previous sessions on the theme of perimeter security, and follows on from our Ultima Security Guidebook, which gave a 360-degree view of our security strategy. So as we go through this presentation, just remind everybody that everybody's on listen only. Please feel free to ask questions as we go through the presentation. Put those into the questions box in the GoToWebinar console that you'll see in front of you, and we'll get to those as we go through the session. I'm joined here today by Dave Harper from Palo Alto, who I'll introduce in a second. But just before we get to that, I thought it's pertinent to touch on some of the questions that we frequently come across from our customers and partners as enterprises look for new permanent solutions which build upon their legacy systems or temporary configurations which might have been implemented in order to support the recent and expedited requirements for remote working. And I've categorized these into a few areas, such as how to maintain security in a cloud-first approach, and maintaining secure connectivity to these applications and data now which exists in many different locations is often a challenge, and involving multiple providers and sometimes multiple different configurations, which results in inconsistencies in configuration and lack of visibility as services are moving from the data center out to the surface edge. And along with that brings a challenge in how to maintain secure mobility, as requirements for flexible working capabilities have grown and significantly expedited in recent months, with having to meet the demands of being able to work from any device at any location at any time. Providing a consistent platform has been a trade-off between security, performance and functionality, and the complexities have often led to traditional VPN in the data center having some limitations. Limitations like maintaining secure and performant internet access, which is often applied via an on-premise proxy or a perimeter gateway, and brings capacity and performance overhead, or control which is often difficult to apply for mobile users who are connected outside of the office, and other sections like zero trust networking, where often a single trust model is applied across the entire internal corporate network and across different WAN connected and VPN connected sites. And it results in managing the risk of lateral movement and managing the potential spread of malware is quite a difficult challenge. And best practice recommendation is to create smaller perimeters and perimeters between segments and between sites. But this can sometimes be a challenge, especially when sites are using differing platforms and differing connectivity methods. So we think now it's time to take a fresh look and have a fresh view. And the market in general is doing the same. And Gartner recently defined the SASE approach, which we'll talk more about in a second. But it's their definition of security requirements in the extended and dynamic perimeter. So Ultima have partnered with Palo Alto to bring you the Prisma Access platform, and we believe this provides the answer to the challenges that I just mentioned, but many, many more, which we'll see in a second, that a single SASE platform can bring for you. So I'll introduce Dave Harper from Palo Alto. He's going to take you through the platform and how you can benefit from this solution.
Great, thanks for that. I appreciate it. Let me share my screen here. There we go. So I'm going to talk about Prisma Access and some of the differentiators and how it fits into the SASE model. But Prisma Access, really, at the heart of it, it's an architecture that provides security in the public cloud. So for me, public cloud can be your data center. It can be something hosted in AWS or GCP or any other cloud provider, SaaS applications, internet, etc. So when you look at some of the challenges today, the challenges really are around cloud adoption, mobility, and really securing your locations. So I think we all know that more organizations are leveraging these cloud platforms, migrating either away from legacy data centers, and eventually might end up with a full 100% cloud first or even a hybrid piece. And then especially in today's world with this COVID-19 and the lockdown that everyone's experiencing, mobility. So how do I secure those users? And how do I provide access as well to the systems that they need to do their job when they're working remotely? So in a typical organization or a typical environment, you would have kind of a network that might look like this. I see this quite a bit in the customers I speak with. You have branch sites that are typically connected to a data center or to each other via MPLS. They might make use of local breakout for internet. You have mobile users with a VPN, and your applications sit everywhere. They sit in a data center, they sit in a public cloud, they're SaaS-based applications. And what I see is really there are a number of different vendors that might provide security or maybe even access. And these vendors might have these overlapping functions. But if you have an environment with all these multiple vendors doing some similar things, it makes it really complex, especially if there's a small security team. It results in security gaps and really at the end of the day, poor user experience. So our approach is really very simple. If you look at what we've done over the years, so Palo Alto Networks came out with the first next-gen firewall. Then we have the VM series platform. And then we shift over to Prisma Access, which fits in the Secure Access Service Edge piece. Now, in Gartner's world, this SASE model really revolves around two elements. One, this network as a service. So at the edge, whether it's a mobile user, whether it's a location, being able to do the things from a network perspective to connect those users and locations to your applications. And things that are important could be SD-WAN, applying some sort of QoS. So, you know, your critical or your corporate traffic doesn't get overwritten by, you know, someone watching cat videos or something. Being able to do things like PBF and that secure connectivity. So if you look at Palo Alto Networks as a whole, we provide this today. So these are all the capabilities that we have. And then when you start looking upwards at the security as a service, so how do I provide the security service to do all the security posturing that I might need? So things like SSL inspection, your URL filtering, a zero trust approach, DNS, DLP sandboxing, etc. So Prisma Access leverages really the SASE model. We've been doing it even since before Gartner came up with that. So regardless of where that user is or where that location is, connecting into the service is simple. It's an IPsec VPN, it's an IPsec tunnel coming into Prisma Access. And then within that platform, that infrastructure, you're able to do things like SSL inspection, CASB, zero trust, sandboxing, etc., for all those applications and services that you use. And it's not just for my corporate traffic, wherever that may reside, but also for my internet traffic. So what I'm doing is I'm providing a consistent security architecture for my user, wherever that user may be. So Prisma Access is a cloud-based service, is specifically designed for the cloud, in the cloud. What I mean by that is the service is hosted in AWS and Google Cloud Platform, GCP, and that leverages a lot of advantages for us. So not only about scalability and connectivity, but if you see here, this is an example of Google's fiber network. We sit in over 100 different locations around the globe. So we're able to onboard users and locations, providing local content as well, which is important for that experience. But you also leverage their connectivity and their peering with things like Office 365, Salesforce, et cetera, those other SaaS-based applications. So we can leverage that peering to provide a more consistent and better performance for your end users. So we have over 100 different locations, about 108 locations around the globe. We back our service with a performance-based SLA for availability and for latency, and also for SaaS performance. And if you kind of look at this native SASE model, it is globally distributed, software-based, so it doesn't require any on-prem VMs anywhere. We utilize containers and microservices based in the service to provide that scalability across the service. It's multi-tenant by design, which essentially means we manage the entire estate. However, from a customer perspective, your instance belongs to you. So you don't share a data plane with anyone else. And I think that's really important distinguisher, is that we're not sitting in a private data center. You're not sharing the egress with other customers coming in. We have a single pass scanning for threats. It scales for need and demand without you having to do anything for the service, and inline decryption and decryption. So in terms of the value of what this provides, speed and agility, which means that your organization can quickly embrace whatever transformation projects that you have without being limited on the security posture for that device. It's consistent security and compliance for all your users and all those services. Because it's a service, that you reduce the operational costs and complexity of having to manage several different platforms, several different vendors, et cetera, and an improved user experience. So when we kind of talk about the zero trust network architecture, network access, Gartner has their opinion of zero trust, Forrester has their opinion of zero trust, different vendors have their opinion of zero trust. But for me, it really kind of boils down to two key elements. One is, does that user have access to that particular application? And two, what sort of security profile can I configure for that traffic? Can I inspect that traffic? So you have to be able to apply an access policy, and then you have to be able to apply security controls around that traffic. So for Prisma Access, we utilize user ID. So being able to tie a user to an address, IP address, to policy. We leverage App ID, being able to identify applications and services, not just based on IP address or ports or what have you. And also being able to apply a posture check, a host information profile. So my corporate device, does it have a machine certificate? Is it running the latest and greatest OS? So being able to leverage all this capability to ensure that that person, that system is accessing this particular service in a secure manner. We can also leverage DLP to make sure that there isn't any data exfiltration or leverage that data loss prevention across my traffic and my users to enforce compliance. And again, as always, if y'all have any questions, please pop them up in the chat. I can answer them as I go on, or at the time, or even at the end. So feel free to chat away. What I say about quality of service, so we can certainly adhere to any QoS markings. We can prioritize, that business critical traffic over non-critical traffic to make that experience seamless. This works great for unified comms, for your teleconferencing, your VoIP, et cetera. We do provide DNS security and make sure that we can identify any malicious DNS tunneling. We apply machine learning and AI around that to give you the benefit of having that visibility into that DNS traffic. So we can block known bad domains, et cetera. And this is all part and parcel of the service, right? Everything I'm talking about is included. And essentially, when you look at Prisma Access, it is a firewall as a service. It's a firewall in the cloud that leverages your configuration, your policies, and your control over how you want to treat that traffic. and it's managed centrally from a central interface. We leverage our threat prevention technology around blocking known malware, vulnerability exploits, and C2 activity. We leverage Wildfire, which is our sandbox for zero-day threats, so we can block known and unknown malicious files, etc. We enforce policies on app ID, user ID, and also leveraging SSL decryption. Now, I think that's important to note because 70% of all the malicious threats out there are hidden behind SSL. So having the ability to inspect that traffic at scale is important in any cloud-based service. When we talk about DLP, we talk about being able to leverage data patterns and customize data patterns to make sure there isn't any exfiltration and notifying you if, hey, do I have any financial data or any credit card information, or what about any personal information? How is that data being used? Is there something going on? Is someone, exfiltrating or downloading or doing some other type of activity around, these types of data patterns? So we can leverage that for all the data in flight. We can also do it for data at rest as well. Regarding your SaaS applications and looking at Prisma Access, we're able to really look at how are those SaaS applications being consumed from a network perspective and a security policy. What applications are sanctioned? So which ones have to be used and which ones are mandated by the business? Then what about the applications that people use that are tolerated? And then you have the unsanctioned ones. So one, how do I have visibility into understanding, are people using Box? Are they using Dropbox or some other sort of file sharing application that maybe they're not supposed to be doing? How do I understand from a compliance perspective what's happening in terms of my data? Being able to have that hook into things like 365, SharePoint, OneDrive, into my GitHub, into my AWS S3 buckets, my GCP environment. How do I understand how that data is being consumed? Is it being leveraged or shared externally? If so, what sort of information is out there? And what do I need to do to make sure that from a client compliance perspective, I'm in line with GDPR? So we can leverage Prisma SaaS to be able to do that, and it's via APIs. We can also leverage our Wildfire, which is our zero-day threat, our sandbox, to look at that environment as well to understand if there's any type of malicious files going on out there, and automatically quarantine those and send them for analysis. So some of the key takeaways around Prisma Access, it's security as a service and network as a service. From our standpoint, you don't need anything at the edge. You don't have to have a Palo Alto Networks next-gen firewall. It can be any device that's capable of terminating an IPsec tunnel. SD-WAN, we leverage a partnership across all the major SD-WAN vendors that are out there. We also can leverage our own SD-WAN solution on our next-gen firewalls. And as you probably heard, we recently announced our acquisition of CloudGenix, which gives us even greater SD-WAN flexibility and integration. It's a full traffic model support. So this isn't just looking at client to server traffic. I'm not looking at just my internet traffic. I'm looking at all modes of support, from client to server, server to client, server to server, et cetera. We're able to look at that and secure all those types of traffic. So this is managed by Panorama. And not only can you manage Prisma Access, but if you happen to be a next-gen firewall customer, you can also manage your on-prem devices, all in the same instance. So another question that I get asked is really, well, that's really cool, Dave, but what are your biggest use cases for this? So one, I think that's very prevalent in our world today, is mobile users. So the problem with mobile users is with, I'm going to call it a legacy VPN. It's really designed to connect a user to a data center and not really a user to any of your SaaS applications. So typically you would have a user connect to a data center. You can tunnel all your traffic into that data center, then egress out to the internet from there. or you can have your corporate traffic across that tunnel, and then your internet just goes straight on out, and you rely on your whatever antivirus you have on the endpoint to protect that traffic. So our take is mobile users still have to have security, no matter where they're going, whether it's the internet, SaaS apps, or back to a data center, whether it's on-prem or in a public cloud. So with Prisma Access, some of the differentiators for us are really, it's designed for all applications. And this is in the cloud, right? So it's not just 80 and 443 traffic. This is all ports, all protocols. Mobile users will connect to a gateway, any gateway across the globe, and all their traffic is processed and secured by that gateway. And then, of course, we can leverage connectivity back to a data center. We can leverage that connectivity into the SaaS or into the internet. And again, there's no commercial or license restriction for an organization to leverage all the 108 different gateways we have around the globe. And it's always on. Of course, this is completely configurable, but generally you can configure this to be always on. So the minute I get that connection to a network, whether I'm at home or in the office, my connection to Prisma is on. It's up and running. My traffic is always being secured in that piece, which is really cool. The next piece is really, all right, I'm going to secure my location. And, question I get is, hey, Dave, all my traffic goes back to the data center. We don't have any local breakouts. Well, okay, that's the way you do it today. That's fine. We can secure that breakout in the data center. But what about a year from now or 2 years from now when you start looking at things like direct access or direct internet access? So folks like Office 365 will encourage direct internet access. Say, right, instead of backhauling it, take it straight to us. Break out locally to the internet, send it straight to us. So how do you secure that traffic? Running traffic across MPLS can be an expensive proposition. If you're adding on new sites, usually the onboarding and provisioning process is several months. And we've always seen that, broadband or this DIA access is typically less expensive, and it's easier and designed to support those cloud applications if you're going straight to the internet. And it also introduces a bit of risk as well. So how do I secure that? Do I need a firewall of some flavor at all my sites? Well, no, you don't, actually. If you kind of look on the left-hand side, you have a site going back via MPLS to a data center. You have your full stack there, whether it's a firewall, some sort of DLP, maybe you have some sort of sandbox in there or what have you, some IPS, and then it goes out to the internet. With Prisma Access, you can actually even say, you know what, I don't even need my MPLS anymore. I can still have all my traffic sent into Prisma, and I can still have access to my applications in the data center. So we can provide that full mesh connectivity while also securing that traffic. So essentially, while you can still leverage your MPLS, you don't have to have quite those chunky links, or you can even get rid of it altogether. So it improves your user experience. It reduces that operational cost because you're shifting the traffic and you're shifting the enforcement into the cloud SASE model. I think from a standpoint around Prisma Access is in terms of slideware, that's really kind of what I wanted to show you. Do you have any questions? I noticed there hasn't anything that's come up on chat. Are there any questions that anyone wants to ask about anything that I've gone over?
Okay, thank you, Dave. We've got no questions in the panel at the moment. We'll give everybody a second just to be able to do that. Okay, cool. So I guess while we're waiting for questions, let me just show you how we leverage this today in our environment. So just like everyone else, there we go. Let's just get rid of all this stuff. You guys can see my desktop. I'm sitting at home, and I've got my little Global Connect client working. So this agent sits on Windows, Mac, Chrome, Linux, Android, iOS, tablets, doesn't matter. I can see that I'm connected into our corporate instance of Prisma Access, and I'm connected to the UK because I'm
just live south of London, so I'm connected to the UK. So all my traffic really is going into Prisma Access. Now, we talk about worldwide coverage. You can see here just a nice list of really all the locations that we have. So if I'm sitting in Bahrain, I will connect to Bahrain. If I'm sitting in Chile, I'll connect to Chile, in Egypt, et cetera, et cetera. So I'll connect to the gateway that's closest to me or whatever gateway that you have configured. So that means that not only can I go browse and go, if I have a policy that says I can watch YouTube, I can still get my cat videos, but I can also access all my corporate related applications, whether it's hosted in our data center back in Santa Clara, California, or whether I'm accessing things that are in a cloud. So things like our G Suite, et cetera, which I think that gives us a really robust piece. And if I rock back into the office, when the office opens up, the agent's clever enough to know, hey, you know what, I'm in the office, so I don't need to create that connection to the gateway. I'm just gonna, let my traffic get routed out of the office normally. So it has that intelligence to understand I'm on a corporate network and I'm not. And whether I'm sitting in a Starbucks or whether I'm sitting in the airport or on a Virgin train using their free Wi-Fi that sometimes works, or if I'm at home, you still have that consistent security around. And when we talk about scalability, I'll give you an example. One of our customers in Ireland, we're looking at how do I secure my mobile users? So, hey, you know what? I've got about 200 mobile users. Okay, great. Let's fire off a proof of concept. So we did. Things were happy. And then the lockdown happened. So very suddenly, they had to shift from 200 remote workers to 10,000 remote workers. So we're able to accommodate that automatically at scale in less than a day. So as these users start logging on at home, et cetera, our service scales to handle all those additional users. And once things go back to normal, people start going back to the office, whenever that is, we'll scale that back down again. So that's the power of really having a cloud-based service that allows you to scale that demand as needed, wherever that user is or wherever those groups of users are. I see that we have a question. If we already have a pan-edge firewall, can Prisma be managed directly from this? Essentially, a single pane of glass view. So that's a really great question. So if you have a firewall already, hey, that's fantastic. So you use Panorama to manage Prisma Access, but you can also onboard that next-gen firewall as well. So you still have that single pane of glass to manage not only your on-prem equipment, your on-prem firewalls, but also Prisma Access. So yes, it is a single pane of glass. So I'll stop sharing for the minute. Are there any other questions at all? Come on, you guys can hit me up with whatever. Don't be shy. So another question is it a VPN? So yes, it is. Unlike I'll call a legacy VPN, we don't require hardware anywhere, right? So it's for a mobile client point of view, it's an IPsec VPN, or it can be an SSL VPN. From a branch location, it's an IPsec tunnel into Prisma Access into one of the locations. And if you start looking at connecting a remote network to a data center, a remote network to a remote network, or a mobile user to a remote network, it is a VPN mesh technology, right? So one of the benefits that we have over some of the other guys that require either VMs or on-prem or hardware on-prem is that you have to scale those instances to handle any type of load, right? So with Prisma Access, you don't have to worry about that scalability. You don't have to worry about hosting something to allow that connectivity as part of that cloud service. We do that for you. That's a great question.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Dave. I think that was very interesting. And for others still on the line, please feel free to add in any additional questions. I think we've just got one more coming.
Yeah. So really, a short answer is essentially we are a a platform that provides security in the cloud. So we're essentially enabling you to make use of your IT transformation or your business transformation strategy. So migrating from, data center applications to embracing cloud environments. So I'm leveraging AWS. I'm shifting my applications for that. I have a SASE model. I'm making use of more SASE type applications. We enable you to be able to secure that dynamically. We enable you to grow your business to meet those IT needs. We enable you to provide that consistent security posture across the globe. So from an end user perspective, it doesn't matter where they are or what they're accessing, you still have a secure experience for that. So that's a really great question.
Okay, excellent. If there's any more questions, please keep them coming. We'll keep an eye on that for the next couple of minutes. If there's any questions that you didn't want to ask in this forum, please feel free to send them through to us. And any of these questions can be collected and replied back directly from your account team. Your account teams are more than happy to help us arrange demonstration or proof of concept if you wanted to get some more detail into how this system works and how it might apply into your specific environments. So your account team can manage all of that. If you're not sure of who that is, then please send that through to inquiries@ultimate.com. We've got a team of people sitting behind that who can respond very efficiently. But for a wider view of security, as I mentioned, this is kind of one in a series that we're talking about IT security at the moment. Please have a look at our security guidebook that can be found on our website in the resources section. It contains a nice view of how to manage security across the breadth and all the areas that you need to be considering to maintain that full holistic view. And Ultima can assist you with any of the design and planning or implementation services around the Palo Alto, Prisma Access services and the whole breadth of our portfolios. They're all listed in that guidebook. Please have a look through. And just to provide any best practice guidance or advice or information on market trends, our advisory services and our consultancy teams that sit behind that useful pool of knowledge there that we'll happily provide the advice as and where we can. So I don't think we have any more questions at the moment. So I think it's time to bring this session to a close. I thank you for listening. Thank you, Dave, for your assistance and the presentation that you've given today.
That's great. Thanks for having me.
I'll close this. This session will be made available via our marketing team and via our website in due course. But for now, thank you for joining, and I hope to speak to you all again shortly.